Purim is one of the most special holidays that we have on our calendar. 2 months ago when we learned a lot about Hanukkah, and I kept mentioning how there are two holidays that are not biblical, Hanukkah and Purim, and they're so special. The Arizal, we just spoke about the Arizal. The Arizal says in a book called Shara Kavanot that the godly revelation, the He'ara Elokit that came down on Purim and Hanukkah were so unique and so special that at the times of Mashiach we'll continue having the same type of godly revelation. Because we know that in the future, and very soon when Mashiach is going to come, not in the beginning, in a later stage when Mashiach is going to be here, all the holidays are going to be cancelled. The holidays that we're going to be celebrating are Purim and Hanukkah. And at some point in a later stage, the mitzvot are going to be cancelled. And of course, there's different arguments and contradictions when and how. But we know, L'atid lavo, very soon, then when Mashiach is going to be here, all the holidays will be cancelled, and we're only going to be celebrating Hanukkah and Purim. Why? Because the godly revelation that we gain in the festivals, we're just going to have them on a daily basis. Every day is going to be Pesach. Every day is going to be Rosh Hashanah. The godly revelation, not the actual holiday. But the godly revelation that comes during the time of Purim and Hanukkah, that is going to be still special, and we're going to still celebrate it at the time of Mashiach. We have a class that I explained about the power of Kislev. You can go back and look at that class that I explained that the godly revelation, what does it mean, a godly revelation? I don't want to repeat it, but that the godly revelation that we had on Hanukkah and Purim is above descending chain, what is called Seder Ishtalshelot. All the rest of the holidays, the festivals, is betoch Seder Ishtalshelot, in the descending chain. But Hanukkah and Purim is above Seder Ishtalshelot, coming from the highest level of godly revelation, what is called Or Ein Sof. So, what's so special about Purim? So first of all, I know we're a month before Purim, not exactly a month, a little bit less, but our sages teach us that a month before the holiday we already have to start learning about the holiday and getting prepared. So we're going to start learning this week a lot about Purim. And first we have to understand what's so special about Purim. And Purim is a very, very special holiday. It's not about the costumes and the treats. There's a very interesting mystical explanation behind the entire story of Purim and the entire Haggadah. The entire Megillah of Purim is full of mystical secrets, and we're not going to have so much time to learn every little thing, but we will try to touch a few of those spiritual, mystical parts of the Haggadah, of the Megillah. And just to kind of give a history, it's important also to know about the history and some facts. So, we just learned now in the parasha how the Jews left Mitzrayim. Then we're going to learn that they're going to be now 40 years in the desert, and after that they go into Eretz Israel. Yeshua brings them into Eretz Israel. So this whole story took about 480 years. From the day they left Egypt till they built the first temple in Eretz Israel took 480 years. 40 years they were in the desert, and 440 years they were in the land of Israel. In the beginning they had a temporary tabernacle in Shiloh, and they were moving around, but till they built the first temple was 480 years after leaving Mitzrayim. This period is called the period of the Shoftim, of the judges, and also the period of the Zkenim, of the elderly. The Zkenim, if you remember in the Mishnah, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai u'masra leYoshua. Moshe received the Torah from Sinai and gave it to Yeshua, and Yeshua gave it to the Zkenim. The Zkenim were the elderlies. Of course, that's not people in their 80s, rather people that were very, very smart. Why 480 years before the first temple was rebuilt? The Zohar explained that there's a certain Klippot, a certain husk, that is called Lamed Yud Taf. The numerical value of Lamed Yud Taf is 480, and the 480 years of the time in the Midbar and the first 440 years in Eretz Israel was to annul this Klippah. This Klippah is a very powerful Klippah. We don't pronounce her name. Her name is Lamed Yud Taf. She's the female part of the Samech Mem, of the devil. She's been doing problems from the first day of creation. Zohar is talking about her in many different places, but that 480 years had to annul this Klippah. Then Shlomo HaMelech built the first Beit HaMikdash with the help of his father David HaMelech, and the first Beit HaMikdash was standing for 410 years. 410 years. Just imagine what a period of time it was for Am Yisrael and for the entire world having the first holy temple. And in the first holy temple they actually had the revelation of the Shekhinah. The second temple did not have that anymore. So for 410 years the holy temple stood, and then came the Babylonians with the head of Nebuchadnezzar, and they destroyed Beit HaMikdash. With the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, the Jews were exiled from Yerushalayim. There were a prophecy that they will be exiled for 70 years. As we mentioned many times, that in the first exile, since the sin was revealed, the sin of idol worship, bloodshed, and forbidden relation, that the length of the exile was revealed, and they were exiled for 70 years. 52 years after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, the empire was the Babylonian Empire. Came the Persian Empire and destroyed the Babylonian Empire. Bavel. Malchut Bavel. So the empire of the Babylonian Empire destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. They were controlling the world at the time, at least the region. And then 52 years later came the Persian Empire and destroyed the Babylonian Empire. And then the Persian Empire was controlling the entire world. As we read in the Megillah, that Achashverosh ruled over 127 countries. And of course, that's when the story of Purim starts. The story of Purim starts a couple years, 3 years before the end of the exile. And it all starts in a feast. And in that feast, they were all getting drunk and all partying, and started an argument whose wife is the most prettiest wife. And of course Achashverosh gets up and he says, my wife is the most prettiest wife. And in the excitement of the argument, he kills his wife. He kills Vashti. Vashti was the wife. So the story tells that they needed a new wife for the king. Who was the one who was presented? Was Esther HaMalkah. Now, you asked before, Esther was 70 years old. She wasn't such a young girl anymore. But it says, Vatisa chen be'enei HaMelech, that Hashem added a certain grace in her look. Chen is grace, that she looked gorgeous. And that's why she was presented to the king, and that's why she was chosen to be the king, to be the queen. Now, we have to understand that the entire story of Purim, first of all, happened. It's not a myth and it's not a fairy tale. It actually happened. As Rashi says, "En mikra yotze midei pshuto." Exactly how we read it, that's how it happened. But behind it is a very mystical explanation to the story. So every little thing that happened in the story is a mystical explanation of what's going on in our life. The Arizal says that the whole story of Purim happened as a preparation for the redemption, for the building of the second temple. And the story of Purim constantly repeats itself, and in our generation we're also facing the story of Purim. And almost in any generation there's the story of Purim, which means that in every generation there's a Mordechai and there's a Esther. Now the Arizal explains that right before any type of redemption, there's going to be some type of a story similar to Purim. An annihilation, a sword lying on our throats, we're about to be annihilated, and That means that we're right before the redemption. The story of Purim happened a whole year, but in our generation we see that the story of Purim started 75 years ago, when Hitler, Ymach Shimo, who is a direct descendant of Haman, came to destroy us. And mentioned it many times. You can find a much more depth explanation that I'm talking about it in my lecture about Mashiach, how the beginning of the redemption started with the Holocaust, where I quote the Zohar that gives a calculation exactly when the Chevlei Mashiach will start, which the calculation brings us exactly to 1939, which is the beginning of the Holocaust. I don't want to go in length in that. Go to the lecture about Mashiach, and in 2.5 hours I explain all these details. But the story of Purim repeats itself constantly. Now, mainly what is the theme of the story of Purim is that there was a Haman who was a descendant of Amalek, and he comes to destroy us. And he wants to kill us. He comes to Achashverosh and he tells there's a one nation, Am Echad, Mefuzar ben Amim, he's scattered all over the world, and we have to kill him. Now, we meet this Amalek a couple times. Amalek is also a Klippot. Amalek is not necessarily a person that his name is Amalek. Amalek is a Klippot, which will always manifest into a human being. But we meet Amalek in our history 3 times. Amalek comes constantly to battle us, but there were 3 times that there was an opportunity to kill Amalek and it was not done. And these 3 times are, the first time that we meet Amalek is in the desert. Right after we got out of Mitzrayim and we're in the desert, Amalek comes to fight us. And this is in the story of in the place called Refidim, that Amalek came to fight the Bnei Israel right before the giving of the Torah. And you know the whole story, that they went to war, and Moshe Rabbeinu, every time he raised his hands, then they won the war, and every time his hands went down, then they lost the war. But this is the first time when we meet Amalek that comes to destroy us. The next time that we meet Amalek, that there was an opportunity to kill once and for all, was at the time, and I mentioned it before, in the war of Shaul HaMelech, that the order was to kill everything, women, children, cattle, everything. Shmuel was the time the prophet, he comes to the king, Shaul, and he tells him, you have to kill anything that moves. Don't leave one thing. Shaul HaMelech, in his opinion, decides to leave the king and some of the cattle, and he says, okay, I'm going to bring the king so we can kill him in front of everybody, and I'm going to take the cattle so we can offer it as a sacrifice. And that's how he lost his kingship, because the story says how he came, he walks into the tent of Shmuel, and Shmuel says, am I hearing animals? What are these animals? And he proudly says, yes, I brought all the animals with me, so we will have a lot of sacrifices to give to Hashem. And Shmuel and Avi tells him, but I told you to kill everything. I told you to kill everything and not to remain one memory out of this Amalek. And since he did not do that, then he lost his kingship, and later on David HaMelech became king, King David. So this is the second time that we meet Amalek, that there was an opportunity to completely kill him. And of course the third time that we meet Amalek again is in the story of Purim, when Haman comes to Achashverosh and tells him, we got to kill this nation. They're not good, and we have to annihilate them. And how are we going to annihilate them? He chooses a day. He didn't actually choose the date. He says we're going to kill them in the month of Adar. Why? Because they have bad luck in that month. Their leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, who took them out of Mitzrayim, died in that month. He just didn't know that Moshe Rabbeinu was also born in that month. But he decided this is going to be the month that they're going to kill all the Jews. And you have to understand that the whole thing took a year. From the day that Haman came to Achashverosh was a whole year till the miracle. The whole year they were doing tshuva. Now, again, we have to understand that the story of Purim has actually happened, but there's also the mystical part in it. And the mystical part in it is that there is a Haman, somebody who comes to destroy me, and there's also a Mordechai, and there's also an Esther. Now you asked before how old was Esther. Esther was 70 years old. Esther was the one who was brought into the palace of the king. What does it mean in the spiritual level? In order to break the Klippot of Amalek, had to be a Mordechai and had to be a Esther. Up until today, we're battling this Klippot of Amalek. The Klippot of Amalek is the Klippot that comes to cool me down. As we read in the Torah, Asher karcha b'derech. I come to a Torah class, I get all inspired, I go out of the class, full of energy. Comes this Klippot of Amalek and cools me down. It's okay. Don't need to get so excited. Go home now, watch a movie. Go and have a meal. You don't have to now listen to this cuckoo. It comes and cools you down. You go to a lecture, you go to a class, you do a mitzvah, you do something, get all hyped up, and this klippah comes and grabs you by your neck. Amalek has the same numerical value of the word oref, and he grabs you like an animal in the neck, and he cools you down. And he takes all your excitement from Torah and mitzvahs. This is the Klippot of Amalek. More than that, this is another thing that I explained more in length in the same lecture about Mashiach, but in a short version of it is that my body is kind of a weird structure. I have this balloon here, and then in this balloon I have my brain. The balloon is my head, of course, and it's holding my intellect. And then I have this little neck, like a little straw, and then a big body, another balloon. And in this balloon, I have my midot, my heart, my attributes, and my character traits. But what connects them is this little neck that is very skinny. And imagine even in the real world, when something is big and you try to funnel it into something small, it takes a long time for whatever you want to funnel to go through. So this neck is very, very narrow. Now to start bringing down the intellect into my midot, into my attributes, then I have to go through this little neck. And Amalek comes and grabs me by the neck and squeezes the neck, that whatever's in my intellect will not go down into my attributes. So I can now understand something really well in my mind, but it will not penetrate into my attributes. And one example out of many, go now to any smoker in the world and tell him, do you know that smoking can cause cancer? Most people will tell you, yes, I heard about it. Most people, if you tell them it's not good, it's not healthy to smoke, it can kill you, they'll tell you, oh, I know about it. So the next question will be, so why do you smoke? Oh, I'm addicted. What do you mean you're addicted? You just told me, did you understand that this little stick can kill you? And you're willing to take the chance. This is an example of what sits in the intellect doesn't penetrate into my action. Because if I know that this little stick is going to kill me, why would I smoke it? If I know that this food is full of sugar or food coloring or chemicals or preservatives, Rambam, the Maimonides says, Tipesh, a fool, is the person who knows that the food is not healthy and you eat it. That's the words that he uses. I'm not making it up. Look it up. Rambam says, you are a fool if you know that the food is full of something dangerous like chemicals or preservatives or food coloring or whatever it is, and you eat it. So this is an example of what sits in my intellect, my neck, so to say, doesn't allow it to go down to my midot, to my attributes, and to actually do something about it. And I gave two examples out of thousands. But the reality is that Amalek, the Klippot of Amalek, doesn't allow my intellect to penetrate into my life, into my attributes and into my character traits, to actually bring it into action. This is the power of Amalek. And up until today, we're battling Amalek. And Amalek wants to cool me down and to push me away from the Torah. So in order to break this Klippot of Amalek, I have to have a Mordechai, I have to have a Tzaddik, and I have to have a Esther. Now, every generation has a Mordechai and an Esther. In most cases, we are the Esther. We are the manifestation of Esther. Mordechai is the tzaddik. We're always going to have a tzaddik. Who is the tzaddik emet? There are many people who are called a tzaddik, but they're not even close to being a tzaddik. But there's always going to be the tzaddik emet. And we are the manifestation of Esther. Now, what happened to Esther? She was called through the Aron. Now, you have to understand, the Armon of Achashverosh was not the Buckingham Palace, and not the Louvre, and not a beautiful palace like how we imagining with beautiful artwork. It was the place of the Klippot. It was the most the most lowest spiritual place in the world. All the Avodah Zarah, all the idol worship, everything that was forbidden and against the Torah, that's what was happening there. This was the most unholy place in the universe. This was the what's called Bet Hatzlamim, the house of idol worship. They had these big parties there, that they would switch their wives and all sorts of immorality and forbidden relations and idol worship. It was the worst place in the world, and that's where Esther was taken to. Now Esther was sitting in her room, and she refused to leave the room. She did not leave the room. When it says that she used to go to Achashverosh, really, she didn't go to Achashverosh. She was such a holy woman that she would know how to create. She created a demon that looked like her, and she would send the demon to Achashverosh. And this demon would be with Achashverosh. Esther was never with Achashverosh. He never touched her. Shed. Esther, she was so powerful, she knew how to create what a Shedah. Soon we're going to get to it, but the Arizal explains that our body, not our body, we are built from two entities. The first one is our soul, is the holy part in us, is our neshama. And the second part is our body. The Arizal calls it a shed. And the Arizal brings it down and he says that we are built from two entities. One of them is my soul. That's the holy part in me. This is the neshama. But my body, one can call it a body. Arizal calls it in the book Etz Chaim. He says our body is a shed, is a demon, and we are controlled by this demon. And Esther knew how to clone, so to say, this demon and to send it away. So we of course don't know how to do it, but there's a way to clone our body, so to say. And Esther knew how to do it. So she cloned herself, so to say. She made a demon that looked like her, and she sent it to Achashverosh. Now, the point is that when we're comparing it to our generation, your husband is outside, by the way.
Thank you.
No, not yours. Karen, your husband is outside. So it's like Mordechai standing outside, waiting, looking for Esther. Mordechai was very worried about her. Every day he would stand next to the palace and ask if she's okay. She's okay. He couldn't go into the palace. Esther was in the palace there. So in our generation, the Esther is us, and the same way that Esther was taken into the house of idol worship and to the house of the Klippah, we are brought down into this Klippah. And in our generation, we see how the reality of this world is Klippah, this unbelievable darkness that we're all trapped in. Each one is trapped in their own Klippah. But that's the concept of Esther. Now, what was the main theme that Mordechai kept telling Esther? Don't derive any pleasure from the Klippah. Because you have to understand, again, the palace of Achashverosh was like you use your imagination what's going on there. An unbelievable wealth of abundance. They had parties all day long. Wine and dining and women and men and parties, and it was the most impurest place in the world. But imagine the temptation to take part in what's going on there. Even the Jews that were invited to that party, they failed there. They failed, they started eating anything that moved there, they ate. Everything that was presented there, they jumped on it. The temptation of the Klippah in the palace was almost irresistible. Mordechai told Esther, don't enjoy anything from this Klippah. Don't take any benefit. The second that you benefit from the Klippah, it's going to possess you. is going to what's called leshabed otach. It's going to control you. And that's the power of the klippah. Once you give it a little bit of an opening, or you enjoy what the klippah has to offer, it controls you. That's it. That's why we see that Paro, when he called Yosef out of the bow, out of the dungeon, of course Yosef solved the dreams, and Paro he kept manipulating Yosef. He didn't just tell him the dream. He kept changing the details in the dream. And Yosef said, no, but in the dream it happened like this and like that. And in the dream it happened like this and like that. To a point that Paro says, how do you know? What, you in the dream? Because Paro kept manipulating the story. Now, if you remember, Paro kept giving, how do you say machmaot? He kept, flattering Yosef. And chacham kamocha bekol olam, there's nobody smart like you. You are the most smartest person in the world. He gave him compliments. And why? Because he wants Yosef to kind of enjoy the compliment, and then Paro has possession over Yosef. Because Paro was a klippah himself, so he kept flattering Yosef. And what did Yosef answer him? I'm not saying anything. Ha'elokim sam davar bepi. The Hashem puts the words in my mouth. I didn't do anything. And constantly, the entire conversation, Paro is flattering Yosef, and Yosef says, no, it's not me. So we see even then, Yosef was smart enough to know not to give any power to the klippah, because once you give power to the klippah, that's it, it possesses you. Once you enjoy the klippah, where do we see it the first time? With the Nachash, with the snake in Gan Eden. He came to Chava. And you think in the beginning he told her eat from the tree? No, he told her, oh, you're so pretty. You're so beautiful. You saw this, you saw that. He was Romeo. He came outside. He stood outside of Gan Eden. He knocked on the door. Chava opens the door. Yes, can I help you? And he tells her, let me in. He's like, no, I can't let you in. So he stood outside the gates of Gan Eden with a violin and started singing to her like love songs. Amor, amor. He kept calling her. You're so pretty. You're so beautiful. So she liked it. She liked the attention. So she let him in. I like this guy. He gives me attention. My husband doesn't give me attention. He gives me attention. So she liked him more. And that's how he got her. He got possession over her by manipulating her. And she derived a little bit of pleasure from these compliments that he gave her, and he had control over her. Then he was able to tell her, now let's eat from the tree. In the beginning he didn't tell her to eat from he just told her to touch the tree. He pushed her on the tree, and he told her, you see, nothing happened to you. And then he convinced her to eat from the tree. The klippah comes in a very manipulative way, and it wants to have possession over you. It has to control over you. And the way for the klippah to have control over you is when you derive some type of pleasure from the klippah. If you derive pleasure from the klippah, that's it, it has control over you. Now you're stuck. One time you ate from the cookie, that's it. Now the klippah that's in the cookie is going to control you till you're able to break it. One example out of many, you see now it's very popular in our day, this website is called Facebook. Facebook, if you are not familiar with Facebook, it doesn't do anything to you. Once you get familiar with it once, that's it, it has control over you. Now try to leave Facebook. It's like the Hotel California. Once you check in, you can't check out anymore. People are trapped into this klippah, and they don't even notice how they're trapped in the klippah of Facebook. All day long, I have to check my Facebook. She said this, she said that. Oh, did you see that video? Did you see that? And then the klippah comes and manipulates them and tells them, oh no, I'm sharing Torah on Facebook. So the klippah has such possession over the people that the 99% of the population of the world, I don't know how many people are on Facebook, 5 billion people, 4 billion people, are possessed by this klippah. And it seems like such a harmless thing. It's just a website that I share my pictures on. But you're stuck on it for 2-3 hours every day. And you literally can't move it. Can't move away from it. One time, my daughter, we have a Facebook page. We do a lot of things on Facebook because there's klippah. You have to put a lot of kedusha. So we have a lot of Facebook pages, but we have people who manage it. One time I sat there, and I don't go in there, but I go to check to see what's going on. So one time, you know, you go on Facebook, you go with your mouse, with your hand like this, and it goes down and down and down. So my daughter stood there and she was like, tell me, what, Facebook never ends? So I told her, no, it never ends. It's a pit without a בור בלי תחתית. It's a pit without a bottom. You all day long, like this, another post, and you're trapped into this klippah, and you can't leave it. And no, 5 more minutes, maybe you'll see a nicer joke, a nicer picture, and it traps you. This is the power of klippah. And you tell people now that they're hooked on Facebook, now that you know they have NA for Narcotics Anonymous, now they have to have FA, a Facebook Anonymous. People are hooked on it in a very unhealthy way. Now, even though, yes, I agree that you can spread Torah, you can teach Torah, you can do a lot of outreach, I agree with that. That's if you have the tools to fight it. If you do not know how to handle it, then don't go there. And the reality is, as sad as it is, and maybe people are raising eyebrows, saying, he's not talking about me. The reality is that the majority of the people are trapped in this klippah. And that's how the klippah comes in a very subtle way. It's not going to come and tell you, hey, come and bow to an idol. It's going to come and tell you, come be glued to a screen for 3 hours. And I'm going to inject in your mind all this poison through the screen that looks to you very, very, very subtle and nothing too damaging there. That's how the klippah of Haman comes. And it comes and it cools you down. Instead of you sitting and learning Torah right now, you're watching all sorts of videos on Facebook. Needless to say that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, and so much more so, and we're not going to go into length into this epidemic, but the reality is that the majority of people are hooked on this klippah. Why? Because they derived some type of pleasure in the beginning. That's it. It's hooked now. Now they derive a lot of pleasure out of it. But in the same lecture that I keep sending you back to go and check about the coming of Mashiach, I'm talking how it's talking about before Mashiach is going to come, there's going to be a great war called Gog and Magog. And the Zohar is actually talking about 3 wars, Gog and Magog. And I gave one explanation that the Gog and Magog of our generation is not necessarily the nuclear bombs that are threatening us. Rather, Gigim in Hebrew is machshavot, is thoughts. And I call this war of Gog and Magog Milchemet Gigim. Not me. Many people, many rabbis explain that this Gog and Magog is Milchemet Gigim, the war of thoughts. That the war right now in our generation is in our head, not the missiles that are aimed at us. It's the war of constantly these thoughts that are controlling us in our generation. And how are these thoughts controlling us? Through the screens. Everywhere you go, there are screens. My phone, my tablet, my computer, my TV, in my GPS. Everywhere I look I'm looking at screens. And in the screen is a klippah. And in this klippah has the power to hypnotize me into the screen. You see people today walking like this. They don't look up. They look like this, and they're looking in the screen all day long. This is a very powerful klippah. And this klippah gets dressed in our generation in the screens. So what's the whole point I want to take from that? Because there's much more to talk about it and much more to understand. But Esther went into the palace, and Mordechai told her, don't give any type of pleasure to the klippah. Don't enjoy the klippah. So Esther would sit in her room. She would not leave the room. And when she was called out, she was forced to called out. This is called anusa. She was forced to go. She didn't intentionally go out. And Mordechai kept telling her, do not derive pleasure from the klippah. Now amazingly, you see that it says in the Midrash that the palace had a lot of rooms. And in the palace, the rooms had a lot of windows. That's what it says in the Midrash about the story about Purim. That the palace had a lot of rooms, and all the rooms had a lot of windows, that they could look everywhere. And what do we see in our generation? That our entire operating systems are called windows. That about 20 years ago, some genius came with 20 years ago, 30 years ago, don't take my word on the year, some genius came and he brought down the concept of Windows. And everything in our technology is based on Windows. That for the PC users, everything is Windows. The Mac now Mac came, so it's not Windows, but everything in our technology is Windows. Even in the smartphones, you open Windows all the time. And we see that then the Klippah, the so to say the palace of the Klippah, what's called the place of impurity, was about having a lot of windows. That's what the Midrash is talking about. A story that happened almost 2,000 years ago. Then now we see that it's repeating again. That this Klippah is coming, exactly what I said in the screens, is coming in again in the windows. In the place that anything can be seen. The point to take from that is that we have to make a separation between Kedusha, holiness, and unholiness. And in the story of Purim, if you remember, there was one time that Mordechai came to Esther and he told her, now you go to Achashverosh. And she could not understand. And she said, up until now, every time I went to Achashverosh, I was forced to go. This is again called Anusa, I'm forced to. Now you're telling me that I have to go to Achashverosh? Of course she said, if you says that, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to ask questions. But now she had to go voluntarily to the palace of Achashverosh. Excuse me? Exactly. That's the first time she had to go, and Mordechai said, you have to go. You have to initiate it. The point to take from that is that we are the Esther. In the story of Purim in our generation, there's a Haman, there's a Klippah that comes to destroy us, there's a Tzaddik, and there's also Esther. And we are the Esther. We are pulled into the palace of the impurity. Now in most cases we are pulled into it. We are anusim, so to say. I'm pulled into this situation. Half of the sins that I do are not my sins. We talked about it in many times, how half of my thoughts are not even my thoughts. All these impure thoughts that are popping up into my head, they're not my thoughts. They're just placed into my thoughts. It's in my job to push it. Now in a lot of situations I'm pulled into a situation that I'm doing a sin. I don't want to sin. I'm not looking to sin. I don't want to fail in gezel or stealing or lashon hara or looking at the wrong place or many other sins that we unfortunately experience. It's not my decision. I'm forced to. I'm pulled into this impurity. Unfortunately, in some cases, I have the opportunity that I have to initiate it. And I choose to do the sin. Why? Because I'm already a slave to the Klippah. The point I want to take from that, at least the mystical part that I want to learn from the story of Purim that repeats itself, is that I'm going to, first of all, I already enjoyed the taste of the Klippah. So I'm, so to say, controlled by the Klippah. And each one in their problem. And I'm not saying it chas v'shalom in a negative way that one should feel that chas v'shalom, I'm saying it to hurt somebody's feeling. We're all trapped in a Klippah. One way or another, we are trapped in some type of a spiritual impurity that's controlling me. So one person will have a problem with controlling their food. One person will have control over their mouth. They can't, all day long, they lie and they cheat and they say lashon hara. Another person can't control their thoughts. Another person can't control their eyes. All day long, their eyes are looking in the wrong direction. The point is that we all have some type of battle. Why? Because we allowed the Klippah the first time to penetrate into my domain, and I gave it some type of pleasure. So if a person has a problem with food, they can't control their eating habits, and the Klippah is controlling them to a point that they can't. I have to eat right now. I have to buy a whole bag of donuts right now. That's it's not about the food. It's not about the diet. It's about something is controlling me. And in our generation, they call it not a habit. They call it addiction. There's no such a thing as the word addiction is a new word. Rather, it's the Klippah is controlling me. I cannot control my tava. So we call it addiction. So some people are addicted to cigarettes or drugs or alcohol or food or whatever other things, gambling. It's the Klippah having control over me. And the point is, I want to annul the Klippah. I want to break the Klippah that I don't want to be controlled by something. I want to be completely free. When I became religious, I was a smoker. I used to smoke 3 packs of cigarettes every day. And I said, I'm not going to let anything physical control me. I'm not going to let a little stick control me that, oh, I have to smoke. Where is it? Just a thought. I was like, something physical is controlling me? To a point that I'm a slave to this little stick? No. And that I'm not allowed. I'm not going to allow something to control me. So the point is that many things we don't notice, but they control us. I want to get to a point that I'm in control. That I'm overpowering the Klippah. That I'm able to break the Klippah. And that was the power of Esther and Mordechai. They had to work as a team. And they were able to break the Klippah. They were able to break Haman. And what came out of that? They went back to Eretz Israel and built the second temple. I mean, you know how many years we are in exile? 1,947 years. This is exactly how long we're in exile. The second temple was destroyed in the year 70. Now we're 2017. So in the year 70, that's when the second temple was destroyed. This is our new students. Come. This is our student Shayna. She's home today. She doesn't feel well. So, what was the result of the fact that Haman was destroyed? That we went back to Eretz Israel, and when we built the second temple. So today we're also dealing with the same thing. The Haman comes in a very deceiving way. It's not coming necessarily as a human being, even though we have a few Hamans out there. We had 75 years ago a Haman that came to destroy us, Imach Shimo Hitler. And even in our generation, there are a few Hamans that they call for our destruction. But now it's coming even in a more sophisticated way, that it comes between the layers. The point that I want to take from that is that I have the power to break the Klippah. How? But not giving it any pleasure. By breaking it. Now, not to let it in, that's already too late. I already let it in. I already enjoyed the taste of the Klippah in all the departments that is forbidden. Now I have to break it. How do I break it? By not giving it any pleasure. And how do I do that? If I have an issue with food, and I'm bringing again, I'm not chas v'shalom telling anybody or pointing a finger. We all have different battles that we're battling. I'm just giving different examples. If I have to battle and break the Klippah of food, is not to derive pleasure from the food, is to stop the pleasure. Is the only time that I'm allowed to have pleasure from the food is only on Shabbat. On Shabbat, it's a mitzvah to enjoy the food. So I have an issue with food, is to enjoy it on Shabbat. Then hold yourself the entire week and say, that's how I'm going to break my Klippah. I mean, we all want to go out of my limitation. I don't want to be controlled by anything. I want to be free. The real freedom is that nothing is controlling me, that I'm not possessed by anything. So of course I have to fight. I have to do what's called itkafia. I have to subdue it. And this is one example out of many with the food. But anything that I derive pleasure out of it is controlling me, is to block the pleasure, is not to let it give me any pleasure. That's why many of our sages, they told us, put yourself in situations of what's called sigufim, that you don't let yourself. That's why in the olden days they used to fast a lot. They used to segregate themselves from different pleasures. The point I want to take from that is that in order to go to my freedom, in order for me to come to my Eretz Israel, to my land of Israel, to the time of the building of the Beit HaMikdash, the time of my own redemption, is only by controlling the Klippah and breaking it. If I'm able to break the Klippah that is possessing me, then I go into my spiritual freedom. And that can only be done by the power of Esther, and she fought it, and the power of Mordechai is the tzaddik. I have to be connected to the tzaddik. Doesn't matter which one is the tzaddik, but I have to learn the tzaddik's learning and his teachings, and to follow what the tzaddik tells me. And there are many tzaddikim that I can attach myself to. But the point is that I have to attach myself to the tzaddik and learn his Torah and go by his followings. There are many tzaddikim to choose from. But the point that I want to take from that is very, very simple, is to be aware of the fact that there's some klippah that is possessing me. If I'm not aware of that, that's already a problem. It's almost like somebody who's addicted to drugs. When they're able to stop is to say, I'm addicted. The ones that you tell them you're addicted, they tell you, no, it's under control, then already they have a problem. Is to be able to say, I'm addicted. I'm addicted to Facebook. I'm addicted to food. I'm addicted to cigarettes. I'm addicted to this. I'm addicted to that. I don't like using the word addiction. I rather use the word, the klippah is more powerful than me. I have to break the klippah that is holding me back. How do I break the klippah? Only with the light of the Torah. There's no other way to break the power of the klippah. How did Moshe Rabbeinu win the klippah? With Torah. Any situation. How did Mordechai win the klippah? He took all the kids, put them together, and made them chant psukim and Torah. So the only way for me to overpower the klippah is only with the power of the Torah. Because the klippah represents the darkness, and the Torah represents the light. And any time that I will push away a little bit more of Torah, then the klippah will be pushed away. There's a major rule that says a little bit of light diminishes a lot of darkness. All I need to do is bring a little bit of light into my world, the light of the Torah, it will already push out already the darkness. So the way to battle the klippah is with the power of the Torah. And you see that any time that a little bit of desire for my te'ava, for my lust comes up, if you push it down right away with a little bit of the Torah, you see that you put the desire under control. So what I want to take from that is that I want to be aware what is the klippah that is holding me, because the klippah of Amalek will be dressed in many different things, and the point will be to cool me down, to get me away from Torah and mitzvot. And the remedy to that is to fight it with Torah and mitzvot. Instead of being on Facebook 3 hours, go and sit and learn 1 hour of Torah. You'll see that the urge will start pulling down. Well, what it represents for us into the klippah. We are basically pushed into the klippah. It's right in front of us.
Because the klippah is right.
But the same way like Esther, that in the beginning she was forced to go. So I'm forced in many different ways. I'm forced to be pulled into the klippah. But it doesn't mean that I have to enjoy it. It means I have to resist it. And that's what Mordechai told Esther. You have to go into the klippah.
You have to realize that there is a Jew.
Yeah, but don't enjoy it. Because Esther could have said, "Hey, I'm in I don't want to compare how this palace was. There's a certain palace like that in Los Angeles that can be compared to that. It's called the something mansion. So this was the palace of Ahasuerus. So Mordechai kept telling Esther, you have to go, but don't derive pleasure out of it. So Esther locked herself in the room. So I have to lock myself in my room of Kedusha and not to let I am pulled into the klippah. Don't enjoy it. Remember how I said 2 weeks ago with the time of the Tzemach Tzedek that he said to the Hasidim, eat unkosher food, but don't lick your fingers. Remember I said that? So we are forced in the klippah. Just don't enjoy it. Just don't derive pleasure out of it. Then sometimes I am forced to go and fight the klippah. And I will be put in a situation that I have to fight and battle the klippah. Then I'm already doing it knowingly, and I know I'm going in to fight with the klippah. Yes. And that will be situations that I totally know what's going on. And it can be also a situation that I want to come and save a human being. I see another person on the street, and I know that if I will reach out to that person, there's a chance I'll pull him with me, but I can get hurt myself. I'm going into the klippah. So first of all, the good news is that half of the time that I sin, I'm forced to do it. I'm not going to be held accountable for the sin that I did. And yanus, I'm literally forced. What I'm going to be accountable is if I enjoyed the sin or not. And this is a very big thing that we have to understand, that a lot of the times I'm forced to do a sin. Forced from Shamayim. I'm going to be pushed into the klippah. Why? Because to see if I will be like, no, I don't want to enjoy anything of it, or to be like, ooh, now I'm here, I'm already here, so might as well enjoy it. That's the main, the test here. is to see if you derive pleasure out of the klippah. That's what the klippah wants. The klippah wants for you to come and taste from its medicine and to say, it's yummy. Instead of saying, I don't want to enjoy your food right now. I don't want to enjoy this. I'm forced to sit now in the line of Kupat Cholim. I don't want to sit now in Kupat Cholim for 2 hours. I'm forced to sit there. I'm saying just an example. So I can now sit and be like this and glued to the TV that's on the wall. Or I can be like, no, I do not want to enjoy now this situation. Let me pull my book and I'm going to read Tehillim now. So this is one example out of many. But I'm constantly forced to face the klippah. Now my question is, and this is what I'm going to be accountable, this is what I'm going to be judged for, if I enjoyed it. Or if I didn't. I don't enjoy this. I don't want to be here. Now this is one way to explain it. The other way is sometimes I have to initiate and go and fight. And then I have to fight this klippah. The klippah again is the spiritual entity that it's causing me to be away from the Kadosh Baruch Hu. By any type of way that it's seducing me, so to say, I'm not telling you to bow to an idol. I'm just telling you to enjoy this cake. I'm just telling you to enjoy this movie, and I'm just telling you to do this and that, and just gossip about that neighbor. I'm not telling you to kill anyone. And the klippah knows how to present the case. It's not a big sin. It's not a sin to eat. That's how the klippah will come. I'm not telling you now to kill, mass murder a bunch of people. Just enjoy 3 hours of this worthless time looking at a screen. So that's how the klippah operates, and the Esther, the Esther in us, we representing Esther, we're the manifestation of Esther, because we are forced to go into the palace of Achashverosh. We are forced to be here. If it was my choice, I would be sitting in yeshiva all day long. And I wouldn't want to deal with this world. And if it was my choice, I would say, I don't want any Yetzer Hara. I'm good with sitting and learning Torah all day long. I'm forced now to be pulled into this palace of impurity, that everywhere that I look is temptations. Here a temptation, here a temptation, here a temptation. No wonder half the people are cuckoo. There's so many temptations. Can you blame them? They are forced into this palace, so to say. So at least the Mordechai, the tzaddik, tells me, yes, we are forced. We are in exile. We're in a galut. But don't feed off it. Don't enjoy it so much. Don't derive so much pleasure. You need the internet. Go and check your emails. Do what you need to do and go out. Don't need to spend now another 3-4 hours on this nonsense. You want to check your messages?
Isn't Mordechai telling us, fight it? It's not only don't enjoy, it's fight it.
Of course. There's many ways how to look at it. Now we just wanted to point out the concept that I have to have the awareness that I'm stuck in a klippah. And not to say, oh no, everything's good, everything's fine. No, nothing is fine. We don't have Mashiach here, it's not fine. So the problem is that a lot of people don't realize that they're stuck in some type of a klippah. And the klippah will come and manipulate the situation and tell you, no, what you're doing is good. Don't stop. What you're doing is good. And you come into this realization, oh, nothing's wrong. What I'm doing is good. So comes this story and tells you, no, you have to be aware. What is a klippah? You have to make a separation. What's the klippah and what's not the klippah? And when do I have to battle it and when do I don't have a chance even to battle it? Then if I don't have a chance to battle it, then at least don't derive pleasure out of it. Don't let it take possession over you. Bezrat Hashem, we should merit to celebrate Purim in Bet HaMikdash very soon.